If you're building AI agents, you already know how fast things can get messy. That simple architecture you planned, suddenly it's this tangled web of services. Well, today we're going to dive into SochDB, a solution that promises to just cut right through all that complexity and radically simplify your AI SOC. Let's do it.
Sound familiar? You start off trying to build a cool, simple AI agent, and before you know it, you're trying to conduct an orchestra of 4 different backend services that don't even want to play the same tune. It's a super common frustration, and it's exactly what we're going to tackle head-on today. And this slide right here, this is the real nightmare, isn't it? It's not just 4 services. It's 4 different query languages you gotta learn, 4 sets of credentials you have to manage, and 4 totally unique ways your whole app can crash and burn. And good luck getting a simple, reliable transaction across your vector data and your relational data. It all adds up to this glue code nightmare that can suck up weeks of your time just getting the basics to work. Okay, so check this out. On the left, you've got that standard cluttered stack we were just talking about, a key value store, a vector DB, something to pack your prompts, and a relational database. It's a lot. Then you look at the right, the SochDB way. It's just one thing, clean. The whole point here isn't to give you another tool to juggle, it's to replace that entire complicated mess. So what is SochDB exactly? The best way to think about it is as an LLM native substrate. Now, I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but what it really means is that it's a foundational layer built from day one, from the ground up, specifically for what AI agents need. It's one single database that can handle your structured data, your vector embeddings, and even all the complex logic of putting together prompts for your LLM. So the big question is, how does it actually pull this off? I mean, how can one database really do the job of 4 completely different specialized services? Well, let's break it down and look at the key features one by one. First up, hybrid search. You can think of this as your vector database replacement, but honestly, it's a lot smarter. It takes H&S vectors, which are great for getting the vibe or the semantic meaning of a query, and combines them with old-school BM25 keyword search for that pinpoint precision. When you fuse those 2 results together, you get information that is way, way more relevant for your agent to use. Next, there's the graph overlay, and this is super cool. This is basically the secret sauce for giving your agent a real persistent memory. It lets you track all the relationships between different pieces of data, like which user said what or how different ideas connect to each other. It's a really lightweight system, but it's an incredibly powerful way to build out a memory that your agent can actually query and goes way beyond just a simple chat history. And then there's this feature, which is an absolute lifesaver, the Context Query Builder. You know what a headache managing the context window is, right? Always trying to cram everything in without going over the token limit? Well, this thing automates that whole messy process. It just intelligently pulls in your system prompt, the user's history, the data you just found with that hybrid search, and packs it all together perfectly to fit right under your token budget. It is a huge time saver. And just look at this code snippet. It shows you exactly how simple the developer experience is. You just import the database, open a file path, kind of like you would with SQLite, and bam, you're already reading and writing data. No complicated servers to set up, no web of external dependencies. That's it. You can literally be up and running in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so simplicity is awesome, we get it. But there's always that big question, right? If it does everything, can it do any one thing well? More importantly, is it fast? I mean, logically, it should be. When you swap 4 services for one little binary, you cut out all that network chatter. But let's not just guess. Let's look at the hard numbers. So let's check out the numbers from a standard industry benchmark, focusing on latency and how fast we can insert data. For average latency, SochDB clocks in at 3.3 milliseconds. That's significantly faster than both ChromaDB and LanceDB. But look at that insert speed. It's just staggering. 0.1 seconds for 50,000 vectors. Compare that to ChromaDB, which takes almost 77 seconds, and it's doing all this while keeping recall nearly perfect. Let's just put a spotlight on that key latency number for a second. SochDB is 4.7 times faster than a popular dedicated vector database like ChromaDB. This tells you you're not sacrificing performance for simplicity. Actually, you're getting a massive speed advantage. And here it is visually. You honestly don't even need to read the numbers on this bar chart to get the story. That tiny little bar on the left, that's SochDB. The difference in performance here is, well, it's crystal clear. But what about a real-world agent task? Benchmarks are one thing, but this is what matters. This test is all about long context retrieval, a core function for an agent's memory. And check it out.
SochDB v2 hits a 60% exact match score. That is more than double its closest competitor, GraphRack. And it does it in 2.1 seconds, compared to almost 12 seconds for GraphRack. So it's not just more accurate, it's dramatically faster.
So we've gone through the problem, we've looked at the features, and we've seen the performance data. Let's bring it all home and talk about what this actually means for you, the developer. What does your new agent stack actually look like?
This is basically your new path forward. First, you consolidate those 4 or more services into just one. Then, you get to unify all your queries with a single, familiar, SQL-based language. You get that automatic token budgeting built right in. You gain true ACID transactions, which means your data operations are always reliable, always consistent. And because it's just a single tiny binary, you can deploy your agent literally anywhere, even on devices that have no internet connection at all.
So what's the ultimate payoff for you? Well, it's pretty clear. You've got one connection to manage, 0 external dependencies to worry about, a tiny 700 kilobyte binary that just works right out of the box. It's got SDKs for all the major languages you're probably using: Python, Node.js, Go, and Rust. This is all about removing the complexity so you can focus on building a smarter agent, not managing infrastructure.
And that brings us to our final question, and it's one for you to think about. Take a hard look at your current project. Is your AI stack built on a solid, unified foundation, or is it a patchwork of services that's really just being held together with glue code? The choice can make all the difference. Thanks for watching.